Hey everyone, welcome to EduMatch. So follow along with us on Twitter with the hashtag EduMatch, or and also follow along with us on video at bit.ly/tweet talk 72. So speaking of EduMatch, did you know that you could be the person of the day? We would tweet out bits of information about you and get you connections from all around the world. So just check out edumatch.org and look for the Google form that's about maybe a third of the way down the page. So today we are on for a very special time, and we are going to be talking about educational research. So very excited to jump into this topic as a doc candidate. So I just definitely wanted to welcome our panelists. So if we could have each of you introduce yourself. We'll start first with Eric.
Hi there, Sarah. Thanks for having me. I am Eric Katelyn, and I am based in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. I currently work for an applied research firm that works with schools on building student motivation, academic motivation, and that's my main research area.
Awesome. We are super excited to have you here, Eric. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah.
All right, thanks. And next we'll go to Kate.
Hey everybody, I'm Kate Zakshevsky. I'm from Buffalo, New York, and my area of research that I'm interested in is looking at restorative justice and how to help build communities back up from maybe traumatic experiences to make that connection between school, kids, and family so that our kids can be more successful.
All right, fantastic. Welcome back, Kate.
Thank you.
All right, and last but not least, we have Tatul.
Hey everyone, I'm Tatul Ntoya. I am an instructional coach here in the Los Angeles area. I work with a nonprofit organization, and we work alongside LA Unified School District schools, where we do lots of instructional coaching. Now we're and also looking at ways to look at instruction differently. And my area of interest is around science instruction and how to rethink science instruction, and how to implement more hands-on activities, and how does that activities impact things like self-efficacy for students, students' interest in science, and how to get just students feeling better about school. So those things are things that I'm really interested in, as well as makerspaces. I'm doing a lot of makerspaces and makerspace activities. And I'm really interested in how maker spaces can be implemented in schools, and how we can use our content area specifically alongside maker spaces.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Lots of great stuff going on there. So that is fantastic. Shout out to our viewers. I'm seeing you all down in the bottom corner. Those numbers go up. So excellent, excellent. A little bit about my topic of research. Right now, I'm writing my dissertation begrudgingly about utilizing technology to help ESOL students learn English. So it's been really a labor of love, and I mean that in the best possible way. So definitely excited about crossing that finish line. So, but definitely it helps. Spoiler alert, it helps. So we're gonna go to the very first question for the panel. So a few of you already talked about your areas of research, but how did you decide on what you wanted to research? Because sometimes that's a difficult journey for a lot of educators who are first starting out in educational research. So how did that come to you? All right, Eric.
Well, I know from just being in the classroom, it was simply a matter of things that hadn't worked, that had kind of been promised to me, I guess, by my training, by my continual PD, that I kind of started to look around at other things. When I started to kind of trip onto things like cognitive science, I learned more about how people learned, and there weren't many explanations about how to apply it in the classroom. That part was really for me to figure out. But once I started to kind of apply those lessons in the classroom, it turned out to be a great help to building student motivation, building student interest.
All right, absolutely. And you hit on something that I was hoping would be hit on. Just straight out the box, you hit on it about the practitioner research and need for that, how important it is for us as educators to do that research to meet the needs of our students. Great. So Kate, what brought you to your interest in restorative justice?
Okay. Well, I think mostly, well, it's a mixture of two things, right? It's part of who I am. I've always cared a lot about people in a very organic way, not just how they're doing academically, but how, because everything comes to the classroom with our kids, and how that everything that goes on at home or in the community or with their peers affects how they're doing in the classroom, and overall will affect their success in school and then as an adult, right? So, hey, sorry. So how did I get involved with that? And I just found that restorative justice is a really nice way of handling classroom management. Sorry, I have like animal issues here. Classroom management, making it really a non-confrontational environment where we, the class members can talk about what's going on, talk about their role in it, how it affects other people, and how can we get back to a more unified classroom so we can all meet our goals. So that's kind of how it's like a blend of me and what I'm interested in helping out with people.
Absolutely. So our own interests definitely come into play. Definitely. All right. And Tatul, you have a lot going on over there. So what brought you to your multiple research interests?
Yeah, so being a science teacher as well, I've always tried to find ways to really get science in the classroom. And I used to struggle with that. And I used to struggle with how that works. Um, and I started doing, I got into a doctoral program, and I learned about education psychology, and I learned about interest in self-efficacy, specifically self-efficacy, and that like blew me away. And I saw how self-efficacy and mastery experiences, how powerful they were in really helping kids get over the hump. So I really clung to that. And then we started doing work around maker spaces. And that's where it kind of all came together. And one of the struggles, another struggle I always had was how do you do these real hands-on fun experiments without a super huge budget? And when I started researching maker spaces and saw how easy and practical they were, I was like, wow, you can do a makerspace if you have no money. You can do a makerspace if you have tons of money. You can do a makerspace if you have everything in between, and kids actually get these authentic learning experiences. So that really helped me connect the dots. And then you can look at things like self-efficacy. Then you can look at things like interest. So that's really what gets me going, being able to really see kids really do real life science. So that's what it's been for me.
Absolutely. Definitely that authenticity and that relevance is so engaging to students. And I know that you and Stacy have that backyard science project going. Would you mind talking a little bit about that?
Backyard science. So me and my good friend Stacy Lovedahl, she's great. She's in North Carolina, and we were just kind of messing around one day. Actually, it was her. She does a lot of stuff in her backyard, and she filmed this slime growing in her grass and asked a bunch of questions. And we were going back and forth. And I was like, Stacy, I've got this project I want to do. Let's talk about it. And so we talked about the project. It had to do with mildew and soap. And I actually had this question I've been kind of pondering for the longest. And we developed this question together. We developed a way to collect data. We developed some variables, and we did the experiment, like the time frame. And then we got a chance to talk about what our findings were. And then we talked, I talked a little bit about it on Past the Scope EDU, which is a monthly broadcast that a bunch of us folks, a lot of folks in EduMatch, we do. And yeah, that's what we do. We haven't done a second project yet. Both of us have been really busy, but we've been kicking around. Kate even got in on some suggestions. So we're still kicking around some ideas on what our next our next backyard science experiment might be.
That is awesome. That is awesome. And really, really, I'm excited about continuing to watch Backyard Science and all of the great things coming out of that. All right, great. So our next question that we're going to tackle is, what's the most fascinating educational research finding you've heard in recent history, or maybe discovered? So it could have come from your research. It could have been something that you've heard otherwise. So who would like to jump on that one? Kate, go for it.
Okay. Hey guys. So the most interesting thing that I've heard recently is I went to a conference on exceptional children, and it focused. There were some panels on trauma-informed care, etc. And there was one researcher there who was a classroom teacher, and then she went on to do her PhD, and she was looking at emotional disturbance and what that is, where it comes from, because she was dealing with kids in her classroom that have ED, and she just did not know. She got really good at teaching them, but she didn't understand where it really came from. And for her, the understanding would feel like she was more effective at what she was doing. So she did her PhD on that, and she found that a lot of the kids that do have emotional disturbance that are, labeled as such, they have trauma areas. They actually have physical trauma areas in their brain. So looking at the brain studies, the brain research, and linking it to these behaviors that we're seeing in school can really revolutionize how we look at ED and the treatments that are available, and looking at it as more of a organic experience, really. And then I think also for me, from the experiences that I've had with special education, that you can use this new finding to make those who perhaps delivered unknowingly or knowingly the trauma, you can make them more accountable and responsible for what they did to the child. So it can really revolutionize the whole way that we look at ED. So for me, that was really important.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful. Yeah. Okay, great. How about you, Tatul?
So I had something I was thinking about in terms of social cognitive theory and Albert Bandura, but I kind of want to piggyback off of Kate. Maybe I'll see if I can try to merge the two. But we do a lot of work. I don't personally, but my organization does some work around trauma. And I showed this video to some teachers on trauma. And Kate, I don't know if you might be familiar with this, but they're called ACEs. And this lady did a TED Talk, and she talked about ACEs, and she talked about how there were, I think, 4 levels of ACEs or 5 levels. I don't quote me on this, and I don't remember her name either, but it was very fascinating how our kids, and they say if you're exposed to one of these ACEs, it impacts you. It has a tremendous impact on you. And some of our kids are exposed to 2 and 3 of these ACEs. And eventually, if you get exposed to too many of these ACEs, it has a negative effect because you start making bad decisions, and it actually affects your health. It affects what type of healthcare you go to. It affects the decisions you make. So I thought that was really interesting. I think it's really interesting for kids, like Kate was saying, to be able to understand these things that happen in their community and how it impacts them. So that's the first piece. The second piece, and maybe it's not connected, but this is where my real area of interest was in Albert Bandura and his work on self-efficacy and how important self-efficacy is. And whenever I talk to teachers in general, students, I always focus on self-efficacy and to know that mastery experiences are the biggest impact on someone's self-efficacy. And if you can impact someone's mastery experiences, and if they can have more mastery experiences, and this goes for teachers too, especially for teachers. And if teachers can see more mastery experiences, it'll impact your self-efficacy. And if your self-efficacy is increased, then you're more likely to persist. You're more likely to actively choose a task, and you're more actively to put mental effort into it. So that's my go-to. That's like my base right now is self-efficacy and how we impact self-efficacy in our students.
I love that, and that has so many implications, as you said, also for our professional learning as educators. So absolutely great. So Eric, how about you? What was the most interesting finding in recent history?
Probably the last few decades of cognitive scientific research that have really shown the importance of background knowledge to things that we consider like higher order thinking. So when it comes to expertise, when it comes to what critical thought is, including reading comprehension, the tie to background knowledge and building strong background knowledge bases That was something that I, again, became very acquainted with while I was a teacher, and then started trying it out because it was one of those things that wasn't really taught to us. The idea of building knowledge was considered actually, that's kind of a low skill thing. You shouldn't spend too much time on it. We want to get to the higher order as quickly as we can. When I started to realize my kids didn't necessarily have the background knowledge to make critical thought out of, just tried like more explicitly building bases of background knowledge or kind of scaffolding that in and seeing what would happen, even though I might not have had the curriculum to support it, and really saw a huge difference when you were just kind of increasing what a student knew and then working toward now what to think about it. So for me, that was just a revelatory thing when I happened upon it, and I hadn't really been taught it before, and it was kind of amazing to watch it work. And then definitely seeing the kind of confirming research that's come out in the decades since. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. That background knowledge is definitely key. So I had the pleasure of meeting you a few months ago at Research Ed when you were in the DC area. Could you tell us a little bit about the conference and about the organization?
Oh, sorry. Did I unmute? Okay. Am I on or not?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Sorry. At Research Ed is a UK-based ed research organization, but it's very much from the practitioner level up. So it's not the sort of thing that is a reform organization that comes in from the top down and tries to like basically beam down like a satellite research findings, but it really tries to engage educators in coming to the table to learn about what's current research, what actually works and has evidence behind it. And in the UK, it's become one of those pieces that at this point, teachers are the speakers, less than experts, or sorry, acknowledged experts, or folks from academia. It's basically teachers who share what they've learned with others and how they put it into practice. I became connected to them a few years ago. I wrote a book that came out, and they asked if I'd come over and speak at one of the conferences, and I just could not believe their level of connectivity. EduMatch, it made me think about them because basically it connects educators in a very similar way using social media and whatnot, but it's based kind of in these conferences. So I basically told the founder of the organization I would love to have another one of these in the US if you would, and that's how I came to know you and ask you if you'd come and talk. But that's basically what it is. I don't know if that's very clear. I feel like sometimes there's so much to explain about it because I get really excited about this really grassroots teacher to teacher, practitioner to practitioner movement rather than kind of PD brought to you. It's folks getting involved in their own PD and circling back to one of the first things you said, Sarah, like folks picking it up for themselves and using the resources that are available and connecting to it, from my classroom out as opposed to coming to me is kind of the mission.
Absolutely. We love that here at EduMatch. We love learning from one another, and definitely everyone has their own brand of expertise. Everyone has something that they do well. So just sharing with one another. Absolutely. So Tatul, I'm gonna have you kick off the final question. So what advice would you have for someone who just wants to begin with educational research? How could they get started?
Before I start, Eric, that was a great comment, and I think this is another one of my rallying cries, that teachers are the experts, and if they just have a little bit of time to be able to do some type of actual research and some time to share that research, I think there's so much sharing to be happen that happens. And I was listening to something on public health, and this guy was talking about the Zika virus. And he was saying how they learn about how to solve the Zika virus because all the practitioners around the world are sharing information. And if educators around the world, around the country, can share best practices to other educators, then all of us can really take this stuff and try and implement it and make it better. So that's really awesome. I'm gonna be on the lookout for that and see what how that works. So looking Sarah, and how to get educational research. I think for me, my biggest aha moment was in my doctoral program. Now, everyone can't be in a doctoral program, but there's lots of literature out there. I think it was just being able to read literature, read what was out there, and kind of say, wow, I've been thinking about this, but somebody else put it into words. That was my biggest thing. So if you're in a doctoral program, the coursework that you're in is gonna, excuse me, really lead you in a direction. And I think another area is to be connected. Like, there's so many ways to be connected, not just in your school, but outside of your classroom, across the country, internationally. So find ways to get connected, and give them a big plug to EduMatch. Get involved in EduMatch, or other online organizations, or just groups of people, and form it organically and just start talking to folks. That's what I did. Start talking to folks. I read, and that's what my dissertation was on. And now I'm doing a lot of the work that's coming out of that dissertation piece. So that's what I would say.
All right, I love that. Love it. So definitely talking to people, communicating, and taking the initiative to read about whatever you may be interested. Love that. All right, great. Going next to Eric, what would be your tips? Hey, Eric, I'm sorry. I think you're muted.
Sorry, I'm getting back and forth with what the red box means and what a not red box means. So sorry, and thanks for your patience. I think one of the things that I hear a lot when I kind of talk about the power of research, and it's something that I write about a lot, and things that I've gotten into publications and whatnot about folks' independent research, is very much echoing what Tool said. People will often come back to me and say, well, schools need to provide the time and space, and they need to build it into our PD plan and whatnot. And I respectfully come back with this question. If we wait for that, we will wait forever. Schools and districts tend to take on initiatives at the high levels at their own speed and preference, and then we kind of get served what they've chosen. And though it's going to mean some investment of time and energy in the short term, I think it's very much worth it. And I absolutely found it in my own practice. And that's, I guess, what the whole research ed thing was. Basically, it started with a bunch of dissatisfied teachers. We just said, we can throw our own conference. We can get speakers to come. And as you know, and everybody in the EduMatch world, you should know, Sarah did it for completely free. But everybody did it for completely free. And these are some of the world's biggest names. They will show up to talk to people because they want the word to get out, and waive their 5-figure daily fees sometimes to do it. They did that seriously. And when people know that they can throw their own, professional development event, it really can take off. So that's what I would say is to start getting into it. Pick a small corner. For me, it was building literacy, and that led me to the cognitive science of background knowledge and whatnot, and then onto other things. But pick a small corner to research, and take the time yourself. And then definitely, as Tatul said, spread it in your school, spread it in your department, get people talking about it that way, and then see where it goes. But that would be my biggest advice for getting a start.
I love that. I love that part, especially about finding that small corner to start with, and then and starting with that. That is just awesome and spot on. All right, so Kate, question for you. Same question. What would be your advice?
Okay, so for anybody who is curious about getting involved in educational research, one, you have to look at where your passion lies, because this topic needs to sustain you over quite a few many years, depending on life. And it's got to be something that you want to keep working on daily. And it's something that you want to be known for once you're finished. And then look at who's doing the research that you want to do, right? Look at, make a mind map of different topics and where it can take you. You'll be matched up with the best type of advisor if you look at the research and they're doing something similar to you, or they care about the same things as you. And then, of course, looking at the program overall. What type of degree do you want? Where do you want this to take you? Do you want to be a practitioner? Do you want to do more research? It's thinking about, one, where you're starting, and then two, where do you want to end up?
Absolutely. Definitely having that roadmap. That's a good point. So I'm going to ask you one more question before I let y'all go. So Kate, this goes to you. So one of your research interests that you mentioned at the beginning was about restorative justice. And I know that you have a project going with that. So I'm just going to ask you if you could please just share that with us, what you have cooking for 2017.
All right, well, this all started at Ed Camp Voice, Voxer, over the winter break. Victor Small and I got together and we ran a group on Voxer for restorative justice and everybody who wanted to learn about it or get deeper into the topic. And from there, him and I were just talking and we decided, let's do a Twitter chat. Because we wanted to keep this conversation going for longer than just Ed Camp Voice on Voxer. So we are launching our first Twitter chat, and it's tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern. No, wait, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitter. And I wrote this down so if you guys can see it. Maybe, kind of. I'll zoom it in. All right, so you're going to use the hashtag RJLeagueChat. All right, tonight we're going to be talking about repairing harm. What happens when an incident has occurred, and then how do you go forward and fix it so everybody can get back to normal. Okay, so I hope that you guys come and join in. We're going to be trying to do this every Sunday. We're doing book studies and movie studies in our Voxer group. Our Voxer group is Restorative Justice League. So if you want to join, go ahead and let me know. You can let Sarah know and let Victor know, and we can get you in that group. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Cannot wait for the magic that's going to go down tonight. I've been a fly on the wall in the group and seeing all the great conversation going on. So super, super excited. All right. Well, definitely wanted to thank all of our panelists today for their insight. Thank you to everyone on Twitter who was chiming in as well. Thank you to everyone who was watching. See you all watching. So thank you all for doing so. Just wanted to remind you all that we have our EduMatch EduSnap 16 launch party going on in 29 minutes. So there's still time to RSVP. If I remember the link, it is tinyurl.com/EduSnap 16 launch 2017. And if you do that, then it will let you RSVP and it'll send you the link to get in there. So definitely would love to see you all. And if I butchered that, then it's on Twitter. Just look out for the graphic and you'll see it. So this podcast will be available on iTunes in the coming weeks, and the Twitter transcript will be available in the coming minutes. So next week, we are going to be talking about 360-degree learning spaces with Jamie Donnelly, who will be moderating. So that's also going to be at a special time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So cannot wait to see you all there. Anyone can be a panelist who has interest in the topic. So just sign up at tinyurl.com. I should say that again, tinyurl.com/EduMatch. Sign up. All right. So hope to see you all soon. And thank you again.